congratulations for an ambush.
Thank you, Gig. I appreciate it.
I always love these war movies, but I have to ask is where did you get this original idea for ambush for yourself?
If I may, it really comes from two pillars. Is that I set up my company, Dark Mark Productions, several years ago, and I looked in the marketplace of film, and I really wanted to make the film that I wanted to. I didn't want to make rom-coms. You know, I wanted to make tough guy dramatic action pictures, which I grew up in the late 60s and 70s viewing when I became cognizant of what was on screen. Films like Papillon and Deliverance and French Connection and Sorcerer, you know, Midnight Express. And it really is about extreme men in extreme circumstances. And whether it's the hero or the anti-hero, in the end, they may lose, they may die. It's not always the, you know, well, I don't want to give away the end of Ambush, but that's really the kind of vibe we got. And combined with, I really have a love of history and I read a lot about it. I was reading about the tunnel routes, and I really saw in the history of Vietnam War films, aside from Willem Dafoe's famous scene with the tunnel routes, which lasts maybe 5 minutes, if that, in Platoon, there was only one low-budget horror film of Uwe Boll's from about 15, 16 years ago, but there had never been a serious take on it. So I said, why don't we make a combat film that evolves into a Hitchcockian thriller when you get into the tunnels? That will be something stimulating. It'll be something entertaining, because you get both, you know, you get all the spills and chills and bullets whizzing by you.
I mean, I have to hand it to you. I've heard and read about these, you know, tunnel rats and so on, but I never realized it's this complex, or was it just exaggerated for the purpose of the film?
No, I think it was that was complex.
So it had like you know, tunnels that people walk through, they live in it, there's traps and all this kind of stuff. That's
the traps. Some of them even had entertaining rooms where they would sing to the troops, you know, whoever was a famous Vietnamese singer. They had, if you remember the scene where there's a little guy on a bicycle juicing up the energy. They had hospital rooms, they had kitchens. I mean, ours was more a smaller version of the tunnels, but some of them, you know, ran under huge Air Force bases, and it really fooled the American military for many years. They burrowed right underneath them.
Oh, wow, that is amazing. What's also amazing that you literally have to recreate a tunnel system. Was this all on a production set?
Yeah, it was all built from scratch by a phenomenal production designer named Carlos Osorio. Had a great DP, Dan France, and we'd all collaborate on how we were going to build the tunnel so we could get the best angles, because I don't know if you got the feeling, but we really tried to feel the feel of claustrophobia. And when you're shooting in those tunnels, it sure was claustrophobic too. I mean, we had it was a whole maze of tunnels. And I have to tell you, there were days where I'd come on and it was confusing because there was just so many tunnels going in certain directions, really to figure out your screen direction, how you were going to take someone from one place to the other. It was complex.
So your tunnel system that you actually built, you didn't do sort of like a collapsing tunnel where you could actually just remove the walls for the sake of the cameras or anything like that.
You could do swing. There were some swing sets, but some of them we would have a slice through it from the side or above, but it's not as easy to swing as you think it would be when you have the tunnels like that.
So your cinematographer and yourself, how did you guys handle those really tight spaces? And not only that, the lighting was probably...
Yeah, no, I would say you first and let him go into the tunnel. And I was on the monitor outside the tunnel. And, you know, there were certain times I was in the tunnels or in the rooms, but there was literally times where you've got the DP, the gaffer, the key grip, the grips, et cetera, and there just was no room. And so I got a better view of it outside of it. And there were sometimes I was crawling right in the dirt with them. Don't ever wear black on those type of shooting days, type of thing. But the production designer was so detailed. He brought the dirt for when we shot in the jungle to match the floor of the tunnel. So it was the same colored dirt. He really got into it. So there's truckloads of dirt being brought in from the jungle into Bogota.
Well, just call me a fool. What jungle was this that you're speaking of?
It's basically 4 hours outside of Bogota. It's an area called Nilo.
Uh-huh.
And it was extreme rain and extreme heat. So, you're shooting and it's raining. We'd shoot through everything. It would rain, rain, rain. I mean, like pour. And then all of a sudden, 5 minutes later, it's 100 degrees, 100 degrees humidity. And if I can teach any filmmaker, seasoned or new, when you were in extreme weather, shoot in continuity. I learned that lesson on this one because, you know, we did it, but it was an interesting process to match, you know, where someone's talking in one scene where it's sunny and then talking to another person while it's raining. So that was an interesting process right there.
Mark, for being in a new production company, you certainly did not want to make this film easy for yourself, from jungle to tunnels.
We weren't shooting the south of France, that was for sure.
Now, in terms of the plot, I find it interesting that you make your primary protagonist as a bunch of non-combatant engineers. Why did you want to go to that route? Because it's one of those things where it sounds foolish to send non-soldiers into danger or something like that.
It was the idea of the co-writer Michael McClung on it, which was a brilliant idea because it really brings that every man. These guys were not seasoned at all, like you say, in combat, into a complete combat situation. So if you would bring people who were more seasoned in battle, and remember, at this point of the film, it's 1965. America doesn't have its full foot dipped into the Vietnam War. Mm-hmm. And, it's really starting to escalate within the next year or two after that. And so we just thought he had come up with the idea, which I thought was a brilliant idea. And it would add to these guys just literally getting thrown into the fire.
So was it challenging for you to recreate sort of like these battle and fight scenes, from gunplay to hand-to-hand combat? I mean, you had it all in this movie. Well,
we had, our adversity was time. We had 20 days to shoot this. So, we wanted everything to look authentic. We wanted everything, when it was a fight sequence, to choreograph it right. When you're in the jungle and we have like the big battles, you've got, almost 100 people running in the mud. You have the safety issue. So when you have all that combined with, a limited amount of time, that was our biggest challenge. And we did it, but and I tried to do everything practical. All the explosions, except maybe 2, were all practical explosions. So we did the 50-foot explosion. We did the 20-foot explosions. And I always think you can't cheat that with CGI.
So getting your stuntman thrown, in the air, what was that, like pulleys and springboards and all this kind of stuff?
That was a harness wire, absolutely. Get thrown in the air, and he did a great job. And you had people jumping from towers exploding, and it was all the good, action sequences that I grew up with.
And why do you enjoy the practical effects rather than, a CGI?
Probably because I grew up with it. I always had an interest in mechanical effects when I was growing up, because they just didn't have the effects. It was either models, or there was obviously visual effects, but they weren't like they are today with CGI. I mean, David Fincher does, blood sequences using CGI because it's faster, and I just love that look and the feel. To me, you get that more of that tangible, tactile feel when you do it that way. I remember I was saying to the visual effects supervisor, I nicknamed him Mr. TNT, and I just said, I want a 50-foot explosion, and his eyebrow raised, and he goes, I'll give you a 51-foot, and he did, and it was brilliant. It's the trailer.
It certainly sounded like you had a lot of fun. But one more thing before I go, could you talk about the chosen actors because you mix with young actors along with seasonal veteran actors like Aaron Eckhart or Jonathan Rhys Meyers?
Aaron and Jonathan both, have been classically trained. They're on the stage, the big screen, the small screen. They're both, Aaron has been nominated for a Golden Globe. Jonathan's won a Golden Globe. They've worked with some of the biggest directors, in modern times, and they treated me like a king. They gave me what I needed. They had their own take when they came. I molded it to some degree, and they worked with me on it. They were absolutely fantastic. The ensemble of the younger actors, a lot of these guys come from Broadway TV. Patrick Walker just starred with Julia Roberts and Sean Penn in Gaslight, had his own episode. These are like the old cast of The Outsiders. I believe these guys are all going to, Maddie Martinez, Connor Paolo, all these guys are going to explode. I truly believe it.
Well,
Like Ambush, they will explode.
well, I do have to admit, Ambush was a lot of fun, and you know what? I honestly can't wait to see what you follow up after this film.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much, Gig.
So, thank you for this conversation, and let's hopefully we do this again.
Absolutely. See you soon. Thank you again.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.